Okay, not every piece of clothing is crowdsourced. I do use some of the clothing as a service like Trunk Club. Thank you so much for being here. It's fantastic. I'm very excited to talk about what we call the collaborative economy. Crowdsourcing is a big topic, so I wanted to focus in on just some of the key areas. All right, there we go. Thank you, Epi. So I am the founder and chief catalyst of Crowd Companies. It's an association for Fortune 500 companies. There's 29 large corporations, GE, Walmart, Whole Foods, Nestle, Visa, lots of big corporations. We launched in December, and they all joined this council that I run because they want to learn how to partner with the crowd. 29 corporations joined in 4 months. That means that this market is hot. And I'm pretty sure this conference is going to happen next year, Sean, just looking at how corporations. And Sean, you teed it up nicely, saying how the companies will be part of this, and I think they provide a solution. I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you work for a large company today? Wow, okay, about half of the audience. So this is really going to appeal to how you can use the crowd in your business model. That is really what I'm going to answer today. So let's talk about this. You might have seen the cover of Forbes magazine or The Economist on the sharing economy. Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, is worth over $1 billion. But what does it mean to corporations when the crowd is empowered? And I'm going to ask and answer that very question. Even here in Singapore, we're seeing the rise of the sharing economy when people are getting what they need from each other rather than buying it from corporations. Now, my conversation today is not limited to the sharing economy. It also includes the maker movement. Local Motors, who will be presenting later today or this week, will talk about how co-innovation and how people, the crowd, are designing and making things. So collectively, we look at the collaborative economy as makers and sharing and the crowd all coming together. Now, before we talk about the future, let's talk about the past. And I want to show you the past and then the future in 3 distinct slides. Take a look at this right here. In the first phase, this was called the internet phase. And this is when a small group of people could publish on the web. I'd like to see a show of hands. Who created a website in 1995? Very few hands. It was technical. There's about 5 hands up. It wasn't easy. You had to have technical skills, no JavaScript. You might have used tools like HomeSite, Alaire, Dreamweaver, Front Page. Then you had to FTP. Oh, you had to have a server. It wasn't easy. But for those individuals that did publish, Brian was one of them, you had tremendous power. Whoever is able to publish had power in the internet phase. Fast forward, we're leaving this next phase. Look at this, the second phase. This is the social media era. And in this phase, you don't need technical capability to publish. Frankly, you don't even need social skills or etiquette to publish. We're in this phase now. Anybody can publish their thoughts, including the 3 Kardashian sisters. Now, let's move to the next phase. Here we go. Using the same technologies, mobile devices, Internet of Things, advanced technologies like 3D printing and beyond, the crowd is moving forward. So in this phase, from social media, which is people create media and share it, in the next phase, this is the collaborative economy. And this is when people create the physical world and they share it. See the pattern and the parallel? It's the same. But now they have the technologies to be manufacturers, producers, funders, designers, hotels, taxis. The crowd is empowered. So this creates a unique paradigm. For half of the audience here, you work at a large corporation, and what I'm telling you is the crowd is now empowered to get what they need from each other rather than buying it from you. Sean teed up those slides of the industries being disrupted, finance being one of them. But also taxis and cars, and people who share cars, you need less cars. Every single vertical can be impacted by this new collaborative economy. So the question I want to ask and answer is, what role do corporations play if people don't need them? Well, the good news is there is a solution. Just as corporations join social media, now they must join the collaborative economy. And I'd like to define this trend as a new economic model of shared ownership and access between people, startups, corporations, and of course, the government. It means it's hard to define who's funding. It's hard to define who owns. It's hard to define who's manufacturing, because everyone is in on the game. So let's talk about this next phase, which is it a business disruption? And the question that you might ask is, who cares? We're here to crowdsource, but what does it really mean? Well, I'd like to go through a journey to tell you about how the crowd is disrupting corporations. First of all, let's define the 5 segments in this collaborative economy. I'm going to show you families, phyla, and species. This is the taxonomy of the collaborative economy. First of all, here's the 5 families: goods, services, space, transportation, and money. I had the order a little bit mixed up. And here's what we're seeing people create or share. By the way, all these slides will be available for everybody to download, and this report is public. People are creating goods. They're creating custom goods, or they're sharing them instead of buying them. People are creating their own professional services like Odesk, or personal services like TaskRabbit. And we're seeing the crowd become taxis. And we're seeing people share their homes. And we're seeing people crowdfund and lend money like banks do. So here's a really organized way of looking at this. Here's an eye chart. Here's a sample representative of some of the startups in this massive space that represent the ones that come to mind when we polled the audience. Now keep in mind, this list is completely incomplete. My friend Lisa Gansky, who wrote the book Mesh, is tracking the startups in the space in the collaborative economy. There's 9,800 of them in her database, and it's growing every day. It starts to segment and vary by every single country. Now take a look at the third rung down, custom goods, and at the bottom one, which is crowdfunding. That's an example of the maker movement. Let me see if I can do this here. Maker movement. Crowdfunding, and up here, custom products. Those are the maker movement, when people create their own goods. And it's part of this collaborative economy. They create their own goods, and they fund it, and then they can share it on their own. So let's talk about this disruption that's happening. So I'm going to go through a story. And Epi, I'm going to pretend that you and I are going to go on a business trip, and we're going to use a lot of the crowd services instead of buying them from a corporation. First of all, sharing isn't new. Our moms taught us to do it. It's something that brought civilizations together. I'm not sure which one you are, Epi, and which one I am. You can choose. But civilizations came together to reduce the risk of individuals and to benefit from the greater sum of the parts. Right? That's why we are social creatures. It makes sense. Now, let's imagine, Epi, we're in San Francisco and we're going to travel. Let's say we're going to go around the world. So to get to where we need to go, we don't need to use a traditional taxi service. We can use UberX. Here's a screenshot of UberX, even here in Singapore, which is one of the transportation partners. And I saw on my device, I saw quite a few Ubers. I didn't see that many UberXs here in Singapore. In San Francisco, where it's dominant, like the whole screen is lit up with little black dots moving around. Lots of cars available, where the crowd is becoming a taxi. Now, in San Francisco, when we get to the airport, we don't need to go to the traditional airport. We can use shared planes at San Carlos. Meet Surf Air, where the crowd is becoming its own airline. That's right, you can own part of the airplane for $1,500 a month, and then you can fly as much as you want to Vegas, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. You can go to Las Vegas for lunch and then Santa Barbara for dinner, and it's 2 people and you're in leather-clad BMW seats. For an executive who's running those markets, it makes total sense. The crowd is now an airline. What about hotels? And so, Epi, we're getting to our location, and rather than going to a Hyatt, we can actually stay at an Airbnb, which is somebody's actual house. Here's an example. This is Singapore. I took this map this morning of different properties available for rent. Check out this one, a Balinese-style villa available for rent that you can rent just for a few dollars. Last night, I met some of my new friends, and they're also having Panda Bed, Asia's version, and it's growing. And it's an example of how the crowd can become like a hotel rather than going to a traditional hotel. Okay, Epi, we're moving forward. Now we need to get funded, but rather than going to a traditional bank, we can get money from Lending Club. I grabbed this stat here from Lending Club websites. It's the stats. This is the total amount of revenues that they've shared amongst people, funds across people, 3.3 billion since 2008. What happened in 2008? Major economic collapse. Houses, foreclosures, and we saw the rise of Occupy. And what did Occupy say? Down with the 1%, up with the 99%. Why are they getting rich while we're getting our homes foreclosed? Well, what I'm telling you here is, now the crowd, the 99%, can loan money to each other rather than using a bank. See, now the crowd has a business model. Now, what about staffing? Instead of hiring an expensive consulting firm or developers or designers, you can use Odesk and tap the crowd, freelancers available on demand. So my company's website and logo, which you saw earlier from Sean, that's all crowdsourced. I used CrowdSpring. Many of the services I try to use. Now, this is an interesting one. Epi, we want to have some real Singaporean food in San Francisco. There really isn't any great restaurants. We know that. But what if there's some actual Singaporeans living there that decide to cook? Well, we can go to somebody's house as kitchens become restaurants. Meet Cookening. Cookening.com is the Airbnb for home kitchens. If you want a real home-cooked meal that's authentic, not from a restaurant filled with salt, butter, and fats, you can go to somebody's house. The crowd is becoming a restaurant. Now we need a place to work, but rather than having a very expensive lease, we can just get a place on demand and tap liquid space, where we're renting properties from other businesses that they have idle businesses and idle office space and idle different conference rooms. We can tap that instead of having our own. I participate in this as well, renting from a co-working spot. Now, what about consumer packaged goods? Well, meet Yertle. Yertle's an interesting startup. It's founded by the former chief strategy officer of Walmart. That's right, I said Walmart. Andy Rumit is one of my friends. And mission of Yertle is for people to share all the goods in their garages, houses, and office and storage facilities rather than buy them. He's probably right. So what he says is that the amount of things in storage units in our garages and in our house and our closets is the largest warehouse and the largest retailer ever. Everything that we actually need, we can actually get from our neighbors. Now here's the kicker. With Yertle, there is no cost to getting those items from your neighbors. They use Facebook Connect so you can find trusted sources, and they're testing out shipping routes so you can get these types of items from your neighbors at no cost. Take a look what's on here. The bottom right is a Dell monitor. There's a bicycle for a young girl. There's even a PlayStation. And as you take pictures of things that you don't need anymore in your house, you get points. Different items are assigned points, and then you can get somebody else's item and trade, swap, or barter. No money exchanged. How do you think Walmart feels about this? You guys, some of you have met my wife who's present, and we have a young child. But rather than owning Duplo blocks, which are Legos, we have them now as a rental. They're sent to us on a subscription model. Meet Plego. We don't need Duplo, which are the large blocks for infants, in a few years. So why own them? We can just get them on demand. Don't need to own toys. They're now a subscription. Toys as a service. And lastly, if the goods that you need aren't available, you can have them made yourself. And this is the maker movement. In the United States White House, who I'm pleased to announce that recently presented at the council that I run, is hosting a maker fair celebrating the maker spirit when people are making their own goods. And I encourage the Singaporean government to do the same. Host your own maker fair to celebrate innovation of people making their own goods rather than just buying them from other countries. Let me put some numbers behind it. A properly shared car, according to UC Berkeley, who's the leading authority on car sharing impacts, found out that one properly shared car reduces the need for 9 cars off the road. Now, America is very different than the Singaporean market when it comes to cars. But most cars in America are idle most of the time. They're idle 90, 95% of the time. So if they were shared and being used and shared by everybody, you can reduce the need for it being idle. Now, Forbes magazine says that the average cost of a car is 37,000 Singaporean dollars. I translated it. So that means it's an opportunity loss for an auto manufacturer, if this was the same case in Singapore, for 340K lost, because people are sharing cars rather than needing to own them. Now, every market's different, but you can see where this is going. Now, that's just one category of cars. So that's the impact of one properly shared car. So what's the impact of 100 shared cars? Or 1,000? Or 100,000 cars? This has actual global economic impacts as people, the crowd, get what they need from each other. I didn't even talk about homes or goods or anything. It's just cars. So the question is this new crowd movement a disruption to corporations? What do you think? Yes. It means people are empowered to fund, build, share, and become like micro-entrepreneurs all on their own. Just as we've all become media, individual empires, you'll hear from Maria later, now people are becoming like their own companies. So the question is this a passing fad? And I'm excited to present to you some research on this. And I interviewed many people on why this is happening. There's societal impacts, there's economic impacts, and there's technology factors that are enabling this thing to happen. This is a collaborative economy movement. And this is why EPI is taking this show on the road around the world. This is a global movement. Don't call it a fad, don't call it a trend, it's a movement. So this report, which published exactly just about a month ago, called Sharing is the New Buying, and here's the bit.ly URL. You can download it later. It's also on my blog. You can download it and no registration required. It's all open. I want to share some stats on what's happening in this space. So we surveyed with my partner, research partner, Vision Critical out of Vancouver. I know there's some Canadians here. 90,000 people across United States, Canada, and UK. We have not done this research in other markets, but this is a good representative sample of what's about to come. I do agree with EPI, though, that a clear focus on China, India, Asia would represent a significant amount of the world if that was possible. So here's the findings. There's about 30 to 40% in US and even greater, about 50% in UK, that are participating, that have participated in this new market at least once in the last 12 months. At least once in the last 12 months. So this is starting to happen across the globe. That's the finding. Now, we also asked these folks, those that participated, why? Why do you participate in making crowdfunding or sharing? The crowd movement, right? Why are you doing it? So the first thing that people said is for convenience. It's easier. I can get resources from a local place. The second is it's cheaper. A better price. And then we found there was some deviation for those that participate in sharing their lives instead of just products like Airbnb or sharing cars. They like it because they couldn't find that experience anywhere else. And a few folks said for sustainability reasons. But the main reason why people are doing this is it's faster and cheaper. There's a lot more details into this report, which I encourage you to read. We started to segment the personas out, and even by geography and age. But for today, I'm just going to go through the highlights. Now, here's interesting. Remember we talked about the eras of the collaborative economy, and the last one was social media? Take a look at this. Most people find out about crowdsourcing, crowd business models, or the collaborative economy through word of mouth. Social media is the dependency in which this market exists. This crowdsourcing environment cannot happen without social media being the precursor. Look at the data, the left-hand side. All of that is social. The middle rung is traditional marketing, and on the right-hand side, many people couldn't remember how they got into this space. So you're probably wondering, at least 50% of the audience is, what can corporations do? I define what this movement is. I showed you through examples. It is disruptive, and I gave you some numbers, and I talked to you about why this is happening. It's easier, it's cheaper, and it's faster for people. So if you're a corporation, you should be on the edge of your seat right now. What can I do about this new crowd movement? Well, I'm excited to present to you that many corporations have moved in. I published this stat 2 weeks ago, and these are the instances of corporations moving into this space. I just tweeted out a link with details on the timeline. And we're seeing a sharp uptick of companies like GE and Hyatt and Marriott figuring out how to partner with the crowd. You can see the level of frequency is starting to increase. Here come the corporations into the crowd space movement. So to make it very easy for us to understand, I'm going to spend some time on this graphic. In fact, I'm going to repeat it 3 times. This is the collaborative economy value chain. I'm going to make it dead simple on how you as a corporation can tap this movement. It's very simple. Now, corporations produce at least 1 of 3 things: goods, services, or they have marketplaces. And to be part of this market requires a business model change. You actually have to turn products into services. Why? People don't need to own things as much. They just get them on demand, like my Legos. The next thing is we're seeing the rise of crowdsourced marketplaces emerge: Odesk, TaskRabbit, Kickstarter, Kiva. And it means corporations who offer services now must tap those marketplaces, and that's the second model, the marketplace model. I think you probably know where I'm going to go with this next one. If your company has a marketplace of a thriving group of folks, you get them to build your products. And this is called providing a platform. And you provide a platform for your customers to crowd fund, crowd design, co-innovate, outside innovate, produce, and manufacture your own products alongside of your own engineers and supply chain. So let's go through all 3 of these phases. I'll define what it is, and I'm going to give you real-world examples today of what corporations are doing to partner with the crowd. Are you excited? Yes. Okay, let's go. The first one. This one is called brand as a service. So here's the behavior. People don't need to own things because the Internet of Things, mobile and social, enables us to find a car when we need it. We don't need to own things. It's a lot easier to get things in a lifestyle of access over ownership. That's the trend. So corporations have to follow that same trend and shift to an access model, and that's called brand as a service. Does that sound crazy? It's not. Netflix has been doing it for over a decade. That's DVDs and media as a service. And then, of course, Salesforce, servers, software as a service. You don't need to own that. You don't need a sysadmin. We'll do all of that for you. It's not new. But now we're going to apply it to the physical world. So to deal with ride sharing in San Francisco is a booming market. There's Sidecar, there's Lyft, there's Uber, there's Relay Ride, there's Get Around, there's Zipcar, there's BMW Drive Now. There are so many ways to get cars without owning one in San Francisco. It's actually net negative for you to own a car in San Francisco. Just borrow it from somebody you know or from another way. So to deal with that, did you know that BMW and Toyota now rent cars from their dealership lots in San Francisco? This is BMW Drive Now. I just met with their team last week. And the way it works is you walk up to one of these cars at a lot, use your mobile phone, and you unlock it. You get into this BMW 1 Series all-electric car, and then you can start it up. You can actually pre-purchase a parking spot in the other side of the city or in the Bay Area, and it's all pre-done, and you drive your car over there, and you get out of the car, and you never drive it again. Now, why would BMW do this? Well, I talked to their general manager, and he said in the future, cities are going to become so dense, we can't sell any more BMWs. So we're trying to change our mindset from trying to sell 1,000 BMWs to selling 1 BMW 1,000 times. The business models are shifting. Toyota's experimenting with the same. Home Depot, the largest home manufacturing retailer in the United States, is now experimenting with renting tools and trucks. You don't need to buy it. You don't need a garage filled with all this stuff if you just use it intermittently. You can just borrow it. So there's this stat, the times are actually, it's not clear, but people say that the average usage of a drill, electric drill, is for its entire life is 12 minutes. An electric drill is used 12 minutes on average. So why would you need to own that, or a tractor, or a wheelbarrow? Frankly, Brian and I were talking earlier that luggage, large luggage, would be a great thing. We don't use it all the time, so why couldn't that be to me as a service? Now, Home Depot has done something else. They have tapped idle drivers in the Uber network during December and said, hey, why don't you pick up some of our trees that we're not using, Christmas trees, and deliver them to homes? Home Depot has done Christmas trees as a service. You push a button, and they deliver the Christmas tree to your house. You don't need a truck. You don't have to get your car dirty. You don't have to go to the store. They'll bring it to you. Now, for those that make consumer product goods, consumables, we see that there's even subscription models appearing, such as Dollar Shave Club. Is anybody a member of Dollar Shave Club? Dollar Shave Club sends you razors on a monthly basis and other man products, man goods. Can we call them moods? And you can get them on demand. And we also see this for every single vertical out there, even for dogs. They'll send you 5 new toys that you can't get at another store, or even for kids, or even food, even clothes. I use Trunk Club. They send me clothes. In fact, there'll be a trunk waiting for me when we get home. And we're seeing that hotels are moving in on the service space. Marriott is the first hotel to grapple with co-working. So rather than actually going to a co-working spot, Marriott has created 2 experimental places called WorkSpring. One of them is in Seattle near the Microsoft office. The other is in Chicago. And they've redesigned their lobby. It does not look like their lobby. I've been to the one in Seattle. And you can go there and rent a desk for the day. And they have food, and there's interesting art from local artisans. So they're trying to emulate a co-working office rather than going to a space. So we're seeing large corporations are shifting to new models, and the Marriott is doing workspace as a service. The highest route that we're seeing is that companies are completely shifting their business model to be a value-add model. Meet Peugeot's MU membership, MU. And this membership, when you pay for it in France, you have access to ride-sharing, electric cars, buses, scooters, and bicycles. They don't even make that stuff. But now you have access to mobility as a membership. They've completely changed their business model to going up a level into the value chain of today's modern person. New business models are being made. Peugeot's mobility as a service. So that's the first business model. When corporations don't build products to be sold for ownership, instead they're selling products to be sold, that one product, many times. They're also offering subscription models where goods are sent to you on a regular basis, or completely changing their value proposition to going up a level to a lifestyle play. Let's do the second one. Now, I want to warn you, it gets more complicated as we move around the collaborative economy value chain. The investments get greater, but so do the payoffs. Let's go to the next one. This is when we tap marketplaces. Let's talk about Airbnb. Let's imagine you are the CEO of Marriott. What can you do about Airbnb? Can you list your properties on Airbnb? Nope. Can you deploy ads on Airbnb? Nope, can't do that. How about tap their API? Nope, that doesn't exist either. Well, is there a brand page? Nope. Can I do a homepage buyout? Nope, that's not available either. There is nothing a hotel can do about Airbnb. There's no partnership opportunities. So what I expect to happen, this was a prediction I made on NBC, is by the end of this year, this is a radical prediction, that we will see a major hotel company launch their own version of Airbnb. Now, don't scoff or laugh. This is a franchise model. In fact, most hotels run franchise models. They don't actually own the products. A third party does. This already exists. Now, remember back in our social media phase, we saw MySpace and Friendster emerge. And then corporations said, we need our own version, and they launched their own branded communities using Lithium, Jive, KickApps, Intelligent, Salesforce. We saw corporations replicate social networks on their own .com. Well, guess what? We're going to see it happen again. Now, the way this would work, let me tell you, is we shift from a two-sided marketplace, which is buyers and sellers, to a three-sided marketplace. Let me explain. So let's imagine you're a guest. The reason why you go to Airbnb is we saw efficient, cheaper, or a unique experience. And guess what? You still get that. But now, if there's a certified Marriott loft, you know you're going to get a certain level of quality. Now, for the host, they have an opportunity too. They can have access to something Airbnb doesn't have. Access to the loyalty members, trusted guests that are not going to have crazy parties and destroy your house. They also have something that the Marriott can provide to them, such as soaps, cleaning, concierge services. They can become certified and even borrow their furniture. Now, for Marriott, they have an opportunity to resell their supply chain and resources to a new market and get at least 10% margin cut from a transaction they were never going to get in the first place. This is a three-sided marketplace. Now, I'll bring it to life. This example is futuristic, and I made a bold prediction on national TV. Let's see if I made a fool. But we're seeing some of these things happen right now. Patagonia, who believes in sustainability, partnered with eBay for the Common Threads initiative. And they encourage people to buy their old and used products before buying their new ones. Who does that? Why would you do that? Well, Patagonia wants to show a couple of things. Number one is they truly live their belief in sustainability. Don't buy anew when we have existing resources. Number two, this is proof of a thriving community around their brand. And number three, it shows their products last. We're also seeing H&M, who is known for making products that may not last as long as a Patagonia product. It's known as throwaway fashion or fast-moving fashion. They're even doing buyback programs. This is called swapping. I didn't make that up. Don't blame me. So it's swapping and shopping at the same time, where you bring in a bag of your clothes, and in exchange, you get a coupon to use in the store, so you have continued loyalty and upsell opportunity. So they know people are going to trade their clothes anyway. Why not make it happen inside of their own store? See, H&M is smart. They brought the marketplace into their own store. Marketplace model. Now, Tom's Shoes is doing the same thing. Now, this one taps to the maker movement. They said, we're not the only ones in the world that creates great products. So why don't we feature those that are around the company and the world? So Tom's Marketplace has launched this marketplace in December. And let me read you this fine line text right here. A little hard to read. It says, we believe commerce can be more than just profits. We believe commerce can be more than just profits. Who says that? Well, Tom's does. They believe in social good, and they're trying to feature the community around them, not just sell products over and over. So that's the second model. When we shift our business model from us just creating things and offering a service to we now tap the crowd to help build that or sell that or service that with us. And I showed you real-world examples of how corporations are shifting their business model to marketplaces right now. All right, let's do this last one. This is the most complicated one, but the payoffs are the highest. And this one is called provide a platform. And this is when the crowd is now part of your company. And you can't tell the difference between an employee and a customer. You can't tell the difference between an employee and a customer. This is co-innovation, crowdsourcing, outside innovation at its highest form. Now, platform model isn't something new either. So every software company in the world has a platform. Apple has iTunes. Google has the Android platform. Microsoft has the Microsoft Developers platform. Every tech company has a platform, and they encourage developers to build products and services on top of their APIs and specs. They have pre-designed where the crowd can play. They invite the crowd to become certified and learn how to build the products on top of their company. It's not a new model. So now we can apply that to the physical world beyond software. And it requires us to take this co word. You know the code word. It's in the word collaboration. And it means us, we, together. And now I'm going to take that code word, watch the screen very carefully. I'm going to put that code word in front of every single business unit in your company. Let's do it. Co-fund, co-design, co-develop, co-produce, co-deliver, co-store, and even co-market. Every single business unit can now tap the crowd as a resource. Not just R&D, every single business unit. Let's take a look at a few examples. So we know about Kickstarter. Let's give Kickstarter some credit. They beat Apple and Samsung to the digital watch. That's amazing. They beat Samsung and Apple to the digital watch. So now we're going to see that corporations aren't going to stand by the wayside and allow for crowdfunding to happen outside, but also bring it in. There's very few corporate examples of crowdfunding. I'm going to show you one that you probably haven't heard of. Have you heard of the U-Haul brand? Yes? The U-Haul brand is rental trucks that you can borrow to move things in your house or your office. Did you know they have a crowdfunding platform for regular people to actually crowdfund their trucks? That's right, meet the U-Haul Investors Club, where you can own a part of that truck and you get quarterly dividends as that truck is used. Now, why would U-Haul do this? There's many ways to get revenue. Well, I like what Sean teed up about how finance is being disrupted. This is true. See, U-Haul can state the terms of this loan. They can get a better deal from the crowd than maybe going to a traditional bank. They get to set the terms. Now, the second thing is, when marketers talk about loyalty, I think they have it all completely wrong. They think that loyalty is really about buying things over and over. Well, I think the highest form of loyalty is crowdfunding. The highest form of loyalty is shared destiny. Crowdfunding is the highest form of loyalty because you're in it for the long haul. If you need a rental truck in a U-Haul market, or your friends do, you better bet which one you're going to be recommending and choosing. Now, we're also seeing design happen with corporations. Nike built a platform to enable us to actually build our own shoes the way that we want and have them designed. I use this platform, and I designed the shoes exactly how I wanted it to. They've tapped the crowd to design and start to iterate on what it can actually be. But we're also seeing more advanced forms emerge, like Quirky. It's a website where the crowd can submit ideas, and a small team at Quirky gets to choose those ideas. So imagine you lay up, you're up at night, you can't fall asleep, and you have a great idea for a product. But you don't have the technical chops. You're not a product engineer. You don't have marketing. You don't have product marketing capability. You don't have access to retailers. Well, now you can partner with Quirky and submit that idea, and a small team may choose your product and actually get it manufactured, produced, and sold and put on retail shelves. And they partnered with GE, who is sponsoring this thing. Earlier, we were talking about the advantages of crowds and corporations. And so let me define how these work. So the benefit of a crowd is lots of innovation, and it's fast. Now, the benefit of a corporation is it has a trusted brand mark, and they have resources. So if you can take that flexibility and speed and combine it with a trusted brand mark and resources, you have a new business model, which is called a crowd company. Quirky and GE is a crowd company. Here's another example, tapping the maker movement. You've all heard of Etsy, right? Where the crowd can design amazing, intricate things instead of buying them from traditional retailers. So West Elm, which is a retailer in the United States, and also Nordstrom's, they are now reselling Etsy goods in their actual retail stores. That's right. Big retailers can partner with your local makers and give them a spot to showcase their goods and sell them. You're now crowdsourcing that production. Now, I want to be honest, it hasn't always gone right. There's been instances where people have fought over IP. There was questions around revenue sharing, so that's definitely still being sorted out in this early market. And then we're also seeing the rise of 3D printing, which I know will be a topic from Local Motors. Now, these are some pictures I took from Maker Faire People are certainly printing out plastic. We all know that. I have a 3D printed business card holder. And then also, people are printing out all kinds of materials like wood. I recently had 3D printed candy. Pretty much anything that can be broken down and restructured can be 3D printed. So what does a corporation do when the crowd is able to manufacture their own goods? Well, I like what Finnish company Nokia did. They released their STL files, the 3D printing files for their cases. And they said, we know you're going to start printing them out anyway, so here's the files. Redesign it the way you want and print them out. Go have fun. Now, see, this made a lot of sense for Nokia because it showed that they were truly engaged with their community. And the great thing about this is it didn't disrupt their business model. It disrupted that of their partners, the people who make the cases. So this is a win. Crowds and companies working together. Just a few more examples. Let's look at our supply chain. Imagine if the crowd was actually your warehouse. Have you heard of Lockatron? This is a new digital lock. And essentially, you can put this lock on any single door or on the trunk of a car or anywhere there's a cabinet. Anywhere there's idle space in the open world. Think about phone booths. Who uses those now? So the way this could work is you could walk up to these devices, you can lock it with a mobile phone, and you can actually access the items in there. So the crowd can become your warehouse. Let's think about the physical world beyond just crowdsourcing as we know at Kickstarter. Imagine if the crowd actually had products and you needed something, you could walk over to your neighbor's house, retrieve it, or at the local phone booth and starting to retrieve it. The crowd can become the retailer. Well, how do those products get there? Tap the crowd. Did you know Walgreens partnered with TaskRabbit, a community of folks that run errands for you, to deliver pharmaceutical goods to people's homes? Walgreens has changed their value proposition from just being a retailer to enabling the crowd to be part of that last mile of delivery for their product set. Walgreens and TaskRabbit are a crowd company. I'll show you one last example, and this one is related to a non-physical company, but to the financial sector. Even financial companies can benefit from the crowd. Meet Barclays card Ring. This innovative project, using lithium software, they allowed the crowd to design the specifications for this credit card. What are the points? What are the fees? What are the terms? And the crowd got to choose, and the card was created. Now, the card was a success, and part of the way they made this work is the excess profits, the crowd got to determine which nonprofit it would be shared with. The crowd was involved in inception, creation, and even profit distributions in a financial model, a crowd company. So wow, you guys did it. We went through the collaborative value chain. Here's all three business models together on one slide. If you work at a big corporation or you serve one and you don't know where to start and stop, this is the model. Products become services, services become marketplaces, and marketplaces build your products. This is your solution set. Now, to close things off, I like to have 5 final takeaways, and then we'll move to the coffee break. Number 1, people, they are empowered to get what they need from each other. Technology is making this possible. If you track the trend, the crowd is becoming a company. The crowd has become a company. They can fund, they can produce, they can share, and they can bypass inefficient corporations. Don't worry, we're not going to be inefficient corporations. Just like we adopted the internet and social media, we can use these same technologies and these same strategies. We've done this before. Remember the 3 phases? We've done this before. But it's not going to be easy. Let me kid you not. This requires significant business model change. Products become services, services become marketplaces, marketplaces build products and repeat. It's not easy. But the reason why we are here today is if you do partner with the crowd, your corporation becomes resilient. And resilient means connected, tapping to a constant source of innovation in the crowd, empowering other people around you, and built to last. So to close things out, the vision that I have and the council members, the Fortune 500 members, is that crowds and companies become partners in this new economy. Welcome to the collaborative economy.
You know, I heard you before, why you moved from this company that very successful, you were part of that, and you moved into this crowd companies because of it has this human empowerment, and it's very. This is the reason why I'm here, and really, when you look at all of this, how it's shaping up. Where do you see the next 5 years we're heading with this? Or next year, maybe.
What we're seeing right now, Epi, is really experimentation. Brands aren't sure. They're just sponsoring crowd movements. They don't really know how to do business model change. There's going to be a lot of failures. And I do want to encourage this community. When you see a big corporation, the automatic thing to do is just jump on them and say, you screwed up, you suck. But that's not really going to help things. So just like in social media, it's so easy to beat on brands when they screw up. We really should try to embrace them for giving it a shot to try to work with companies. Yeah. I'll be really bold, and if this crowd movement, this actually has significant global social economic impacts. If the crowd starts to rise, we might see people becoming more empowered and actual wealth distribution start to average out. And part of this movement is around sustainability, people reusing goods, and that forces corporations to build durable goods that last, that can be shared amongst many hands.
Yeah.
If this collaborative economy happens, it changes the world. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was in Jakarta like 3 weeks ago, and I said to my friends in 99 Designs in San Francisco, I said, send me some stats. Interesting stuff that I found is that they have 21,000 active members, graphic designers coming out of Indonesia on 99 Designs. And out of those 21,000 active members, 5,000 are the ones who took rewards more than once, which collectively took over $6 million. And this really has quite an impact on the economy. So when you look at all of this and the economy and how corporations are embracing this and where the future of work is going to be, where your future of talent, I think this is really, really amazing.
So it levels things out, absolutely. So my logo was designed by somebody in Manila, and the website was designed by somebody in India, and they made thousands of dollars. I mean, they made months of salary just by working with me. Yes, I did 90 iterations with them. It was a lot of work. But they made a lot of money. It's not easy. They made a lot of money for their life.
Great. Jeremiah, really thankful that you're here, and looking forward to hear more from other people. But thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Looking forward.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.